Hello, is it a gentleman, lady? How's everybody doing this evening?
We doing fine, champ. You ready for next week?
Ready? Yeah. I'm ready.
And what's up and good morning. Another episode of the Knucklehead Chronicles podcast. It is your boy, the Guru. I am sitting here doing my series, The Origin. This is part 5. And for those of you who are keeping up, we're going through tragedy already. I tell you, my whole life was tragedy, man, to be honest with you. I went through a lot, right? So, because I didn't have, I wouldn't say the proper training. I just didn't have, my mother and father were, my mother, my stepfather, they tried their best, my mother was, both of them were no nonsense, people. And we were raised in church, Christian values and things of this nature. And, we was in church 6 days a week. I don't know. So I try not to blame church, because church was great, but I was a youngin', for those of you who are listening to this and probably are avid churchgoers, I'm not gonna, I'm not bashing the Holy Spirit and nothing like that. I would not dare do nothing like that. But it was just, when I was coming up, it was just so much. It was so much of it. And then as soon as I was able to make my own decisions about church, I was like, nah, I ain't going. So I didn't. But back to the story. First, before we get into to the story today, I want to give this really quick PSA, if I could. I need for everybody who's listening to tell everyone in your family that you love them. I'm not sure of what's going on, but it seems to me that every time I open up my Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever, every time I open that stuff up, I'm always reading about someone who has passed on or transitioned, and it's a lot. And I read like 4 or 5 RIPs yesterday. Just in the people that I run with, my circle. So I'm saying that to say this, man. Listen, if you haven't told the person, people in your life, your family, whatever, tell them you love them. If you got to art with them, tell them, because at least if you tell them while the blood is still running warm in their veins, you can fix it. There's an ability to fix it. Man, before I get into the story, I had a homeboy of mine that I grew up with. We grew up down the street from each other. We rode the same bus, of course, and I would go to his house, and I had a crush on his sister and all of that. But that was years ago. He found out that he, unalived himself intentionally. He went through a lot of PTSD, depression, things of that nature. And it hurt me, because that was my guy. We hadn't, and I remember reaching out to him a couple of years ago when I read a post of his on Facebook, but he never reached, he never reached back out, But that seems to be a lot of that going on. If you look at the young lady who was Miss USA at one point, jumped 29 stories. It's just crazy. I don't know. But I pray for the families, and I pray for the families, and we need to the ones of us that are still here. We need to take care of the people that God has blessed us with, and let them know that we love them. Okay, but moving on. Rest in peace, Terrence. By the way, so we are in Origin 5, or the Origin. We had part 5. Now, in this part of the story, I've gotten with Minnie Pearl, and she has destroyed me in front of her children. I mean, and so, you ever heard that saying that, and this is a mantra that I live with every day, and my belief is you teach people how to treat you, right? You teach folk how to treat you. And the reason I say that, because I didn't chin check what happened with her daughter and her sons and stuff, it continued. I mean, it continued. And not only did it continue, it got worse. Like, it was like every day, it was an attack to the ego, like every single day. And she knew it. She didn't care. It was like, you chose this life. It didn't choose. You chose this life, and I did. I did. I chose that life, and for any number of reasons that sounds now absolutely ridiculous. Like, I should have been gone, right? But because of that whole pride thing, not wanting to go home, not wanting to let people see I was a failure, not all of that, right? And I should have just left. I should have been like, I'm done. But because I didn't understand what my value was, because I didn't see me as being valuable to myself, is the reason why I stayed. And that's the reason why 80%, 90% of people that stay in situations, they stay because of that, because they don't know their value. They don't know how powerful they can be, how powerful they can be. They don't know. And not only, I don't even think it's a thing of not knowing. I think it's a thing of just not tapping into their worth and their power and their self-love, because I can tell you, at this part of the game, for me in my life, I hated myself. It was when I tell you, and it wasn't even not just simple hate. It was a complete loathing of myself. And there was many times where
it's 7:05 a.m.
Alexa said, okay. Well, I didn't ask you for that, Alexa. Thank you. It is 7:05 a.m. Now she's right. But anyways, at this point of my life, I completely loathed myself. I hated myself. I didn't know, what I was doing. And that was the biggest part of it. That's the biggest reason why I hated myself, was because I had no earthly idea what I was doing. And I didn't really have anybody to straighten me out. My mom and my dad, I lived 2.5 hours away from them. And I didn't go home very often because she became very, very, very possessive. Not just, wanting to be my mother, she became absolutely possessive with me. Like, where you going? When you coming back? And this is the age of cell phones at this point. So cell phones first started popping off. And I remember she went to the store. She went to Cricket. Cricket was a big thing back in the day. And she bought me a Nokia phone. And those of you guys know what a Nokia phone is. They're like a little candy bar phone. And it had, I'll tell you guys my age. The Nokia phone I had, it had the game Snake on it. Anybody listening to this, if you're a woman, you are a man or a woman of a certain age, you know what Snake is. You feel my pain, okay? And so she bought this phone for me just so she can keep tabs. And it wasn't, it wasn't just a cell phone she bought me a pager too, because she wanted to keep tabs. Again, all of these are red flags. All those things that was happening back then are now, in today's society, red flags, right? But back then, there wasn't red flags. They were just things that were happening, right? And so I just kind of rolled on, worked. I don't think that I'm an ugly individual, So every time I went out, I did get approached, or I did get looked at, or whatever. But that time of my life was hard, extremely, extremely hard. But there was a bright spot that happened in this. when I was there with Minnie Pearl, I was struggling emotionally. She was fine. I was struggling emotionally. There's one incident that happened, and it was, and I'll tell you about this. Minnie Pearl and I went to the grocery store, and so we were coming back, and I told you guys we had got these moved into these apartments that were brand new, they were newly built, and so when we first moved in, we didn't have any neighbors, right? So I think we were the first ones in that whole apartment building because it was new. So we went to the grocery store and we came back. And we backed into our parking spot like we always did. But I looked over to the left, which there was a young man that was sitting in his mother's car next door to us. And, I didn't think anything of it. I just looked at him. I think we caught eyes, and I'm not even sure how we started talking, but this young man became my best friend. And we're still best friends to this day, right? Name is Sharon. And Sharon, at the time that we met, was a recovering drug addict when we first met. And we were just going through emotionally, the both of us. So the calamity in our lives was what brought us together, right? He was trying to go through it. He had just come out of rehab. His mother had moved in across the hall from us. And so he came back home to be with mom and brother. And it was just, a time. But I was so thankful that I met him because I had someone else that I could talk to. We were kind of close in age. You know what I'm saying? I think Sharon got me by a couple of years, maybe. Or maybe I'm older. I don't know. But anyway, I had somebody to talk and vent to. When I was going through my thing with Minnie Pearl and I didn't know what I was doing and I was hurting and all that, Sharon became my best friend, and to this day is still my friend. He is now an apostle, and he preaches in churches, and we went to the same churches, we went to the same ministry trainings, all of that. We did life together, me and him. But before we did all that, before we got saved, we were hoes. And if you ever talk to him, that's a story that he'll tell you. Is that we were mad hoes. But anyway, life at that time was just so difficult, and because of him, and he probably will never listen to this episode. I might even send it to him just so he can hear it. But that man saved my life, whether he knows that or not. Whether he knows that or not, that man saved my life. Even in the lowest part of his life, he saved mine. Listen, if you have people in your life who are attached to you, cultivate those relationships, because you never know the effect that they may have on you or the effect that you may have on them. I remember we talked years later. I mean, when I tell you, me and Sharon became family. We still are family to this day. We don't talk as much as we used to, but that's still my brother. And, I was there for him with the passing, because the situation with him, it was him, his little brother, Adrian, his mother, and then his grandmother. Now, his grandmother, she was a woman of God for real, and she loved Jesus. You understand? There was, I'll get back to this story here in a sec, but I just got to tell the story. Me and him was getting ready to go out one night, and Mother Barnett, That's what we always called her Mother Barnett. Her name was Emily, but everybody else called her Mother Barnett, just simply out of respect, right? So one night we was getting ready to go to the club, and me and Sharon, Sharon had went to the store. Now Sharon, he was kind of this buff dude. He used to work out, right? I think he still does, but I'm not. We haven't talked in so long. But he went to Target and got this see-through fishnet. If he hears this, he's gonna laugh his head off. I know he will. But yeah, he was he bought a fishnet see-through shirt, and he thought he was just a joint, right? But Sharon was that guy that worked out the top, but he didn't work on his legs that much. Anyway, it's neither here nor there. But he got this shirt, and so we was getting ready to go out, and his mom didn't like us going out. Now, we could hang, but we couldn't go out. And so one day, that night, it was a Friday night, I'll never forget it. Mother Barnett, Mother Crockett, she was like, you and Sharon should not go out. We wanted to go out. Now, at this time, Sharon had a little, he had bought his car. I forgot where he got this car from, but he had like a white old school Hyundai XL, right? She said, God said you guys should not go out to the club. We were youngins. We were trying to get out to the club, see what's going on, see what's popping and cracking. And so she's like, I'm telling y'all shouldn't go. And I'm like, okay, Mama Crockett, we're gonna go. We're gonna go. And so we left out of the house. We walked to Sharon's car. And it was right outside in the parking spot. But it wouldn't start. The car wouldn't start. And I was like, oh Lord. Growing up in the church, and somebody tell you that God said, anytime somebody starts the sentence with God said, listen to him. But anyway, he was like, God said y'all shouldn't go to the club, and we didn't think anything of it. And so we went on, we're gonna call ourselves, rebelling. We get out to the car wouldn't start. And so we figured it was the alternator or the cable loose on the battery or something, right? So we go and we pop the hood on the car, and the car, he was like, okay, well, Terry, just stand here and see if you see any sparks or anything like that. So I'm standing under the hood of the car, and he gets in the car and cranks it up. The second time he cranked the car up, it caught on fire. The whole thing catches on fire. And I was like, okay, God, all right. Maybe we shouldn't go to the club. So we ended up, of course, not going to the club because I didn't have no car, and I couldn't drive Minnie Pearl's car. She wasn't having that. But I said that story to say this is that you need to find somebody, find whoever you have in your circle that you can roll with. Roll with them folks, and loving them folks. Because I'm telling you, Sharon Barnett, man, saved my life, man. For real, like he didn't even know. And there were times where he would give me advice. This is after he got going. When I met him, he was clean, right? So he was lucid. And we started going to church together and stuff like that. And it was like, brother, listen, you shouldn't really be in this. Never believe that you're in something all by your lonesome. I think I said this before in a prior episode. Never believe that you're in a situation alone. Somebody's there. Somebody there is praying. Somebody's there is, waiting for you to reach out, because it's easy to not say anything and then go into this deep depression and this deep, the sunken place, and I was almost in that sunken place with her. And then I met Sharon, and it was like, nah, I can't do this. And so Sharon, he was like, you can live this life and not have to succumb to nonsense. Now, mind you, I keep telling you guys, I stayed with this woman for years after the whole blow up. Not much longer after that, but it was terrible. So me and Sharon remain friends. We're still friends to this day. And I love him for that. That's my brother. I was there when his grandmother passed, which was traumatic. So that brought us closer together. So we remained friends at that point. And then his mother just passed away here a couple of years ago. And when I tell you, when I got that news, that thing hurt, like legit, because she was always there. Mom Joanne, she was always there. She was great, man, I tell you. Me and Sharon we were so good of friends when I was married the second time around, and we'll get to that. I had that at one point in time because of bad situations and financial choices, I had to end up moving in with him. But that's a story for another podcast. But this thing with Minnie Pearl though was tough to the point where I just didn't know what to do. So I get this call from my brother's wife. Well, if we're being honest, she's my ex sister-in-law. My brother and my sister-in-law got divorced some time ago. But she calls me and she says, "Yo, Terry, I got something to tell you." I said, "What?" She says, "I got somebody that you should meet." Can you guys notice a pattern here? I can never find my own woman. It was always somebody. It was always a hookup or something like that. And so, so she called me. When she called me, I was like, "Well, I am okay, whatever." And so now what I didn't know was I was heading for
emotional, damn it.
But it's just, I'm not sure. But anyway, so I go and she's like, "Now at this time, my brother's in the military. So he's he is based down in Camp Lejeune. So down in Jacksonville, North Carolina. Those of you guys who are listening from North Carolina. So I go down to Jacksonville to hang out with my brother for a little while and meet this young lady. The day I get there, I catch a Greyhound bus because back then you just, again, I didn't have a car, so it wasn't like I can fly, anywhere. And then Jacksonville was only a 4-hour trip, so I got on the bus. Another piece of advice I can give you: don't ride Greyhound like ever. But anyways, I neither here nor there. So I got on the bus, went down, and I met this young lady. Oh man, when I tell you that it was a whole different thing with this young lady. I mean, when I saw her, it was like, oh boy, this is the one. So, and I should cut it off right here because this goes into another part of my life. But I mentioned it to set the stage, right? Because to set the stage for this big explosion of nonsense that's going to happen, probably in episode 6 or 7, but it's just huge. So I meet this young lady, instantly fall in love with her, or at least I think. If you guys have been listening long enough, man, y'all know my track record. I was not really in love with these females. It was just, I was in love with the idea. If I can be honest, I was in love with the idea, right? And no difference here, but the one difference that did happen between this time and the others is that I did find her like wildly attractive. I mean, she was that good looking, right? So, anywho, we spend the weekend together. That very first weekend I go down there. And she had a whole story and past that I knew nothing about. So I leave, I go back to Charlotte to go back to Minnie Pearl. And in the next 3 or 4 episodes, you will hear the constant back and forth that I did and all of this nonsense. When I tell y'all what happened when I moved to Illinois, you're going to be like, you did what? To who? But I'm going to drop it off right here. So y'all, like I said, stay tuned because like I said, I told you yesterday in the last episode, buckle up. This is going to get really nuts, right? So just to give you another recap, I have now been introduced to another young lady who became my second wife, but we'll get into that. And her nickname, like I told you guys, I always give names to protect the innocent, or in this case, protect the guilty. So you got Minnie Pearl, who was the older lady, and now let me introduce you to Strawberry, who is my second wife, but that's neither here nor there. We'll get into that in episode 6. So I'm going to go. You guys have a great rest of your day. I hope you are enjoying this series so far. This is the Origin Part 5. I hope you guys are enjoying, and I will see you guys next time.